There is something about giving a fresh bouquet of flowers to a friend or a family member and having fresh flowers on your table every week. But let's be honest, flowers are expensive. And as a stay-at-home mom of 4, buying flowers every week for my table was getting a little out of control. So I decided that I was going to grow them in my backyard. So I started a fresh cut flower garden in my backyard, and now we get fresh cut flowers for our table every week, and I have tons to give away to friends and family. And I can't wait to share with you guys my 5 tips for growing fresh cut flowers right in your backyard. Hi, and welcome back to the farmhouse. I'm Deanne from Hummingbird Acres, and this is our place to inspire you to live the homestead farmhouse lifestyle and to give you guys a little glimpse into our daily lives with 4 kids and just all the adventures that come along with it. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified anytime I upload a new video about homesteading, gardening, and from scratch cooking. I have to say that I am super excited to share these tips with you today. So I'm going to share with you the 5 tips to growing a beautiful backyard cutting garden. And a cutting garden is one where you are cutting the flowers to either have on your table or to give away to friends. So I'm going to share the 5 tips that we use every year in our cutting garden, and it gives us hundreds and hundreds of flowers to enjoy ourselves and to give away. And a little secret: having a cutting garden actually increases your produce and your yield from your vegetable garden, which we'll get into in a little bit. Before we get into the tips, I want you guys to comment below and let me know if you have a cutting garden already or if you're thinking about starting one. And if you're thinking about starting one, what is stopping you or what is holding you up? I really want to know. I want to help you guys start your cutting garden because they are absolutely amazing, not only for all the flowers, but for all the produce that you'll get as well. My first tip for creating a beautiful backyard cutting garden is to pick the right flowers. There are tons of flowers out there. There are tons of flowers you can find at nurseries, really anywhere. But you want to plant flowers that are specifically for cutting gardens. I have a full list of these flowers on our website, which I'll link below for you. But you want to plant flowers that are specifically made for a cutting garden. And the key requirement for that is that you want to make sure that your stem length is at least 18 to 24 inches long. That way when you're creating bouquets, you can have these nice, beautiful bouquets. And to have success with the flowers in your cutting garden, you want to make sure that you're planting flowers that are appropriate for your gardening zone. So if you don't know what your gardening zone is, it is real easy to find out. Type in a quick search into Google, your zip code with the word gardening zone, and you're going to get your garden zone. And then you're also going to want to look for your first frost date and your last frost date. And this is going to determine when you're going to plant things and what things will actually grow in your area. So if you haven't done so already, figure out your gardening zone and keep that in mind when you're picking the flowers you want to grow in your cutting garden. A lot of the seed packs will tell you which ones will grow in the right area. It is really easy to fall into the trap of just planting or looking through a seed catalog and buying all of the seeds for all of the flowers that you absolutely love. And then you just have tons of flowers, but you don't have enough fillers, you don't have enough heroes, you don't have enough spikes. So therefore, when you go to make your bouquets, you don't have a balanced bouquet. So you want to make sure that you plant a little bit in each of the 5 bouquet element categories so that you can have a balanced bouquet. This is not hard, it's actually really easy, and I have it all written down in my ebook, Planting Beautiful Bouquets, which I've linked below for you as well, if you want to check out what I recommend you plant for each type or each element of a bouquet. My next tip for you when it comes to growing a beautiful backyard cutting garden is to start your seeds indoors. And to start seeds, not buy flowers from a nursery or from a big box store. If you're going to buy seeds, you are going to get more variety. You are going to get more of the things you don't necessarily see in the big box stores, and it's just going to give more interest to your bouquets. I just published a blog post all about my favorite places to buy seeds, which I will link below for you. And believe it or not, Christmas, New Year's is the perfect time to buy all of those seeds before they sell out. When buying seeds, you want to pay close attention to the bloom time that's listed on the back of the seed pack. This and paying attention to your first and last frost date will determine if that seed is actually going to bloom and give you a flower. So if the time between your first frost date and your last frost date is less than the bloom time on the back of the packaging, the flower's not going to bloom and you're just going to be wasting your time. So make sure that you're picking flowers that will bloom within your first frost date and your last frost date. And when it comes to starting seeds indoors, the seed packets have all the information about when to start them as well, so that you have optimal time. And starting them indoors is going to jumpstart your garden. It's going to make it so you have flowers sooner, and it is going to, even though it sounds like more work in the beginning, in the end it's going to be much less work. When those seeds have now turned into seedlings, you are going to want to plant them outside. Now remember, you want to plant them outside after your last frost date, but you also want to make sure that it is warm enough to plant them outside. You know, those annuals, those summer annuals, they don't like to get cold at all. So even just a little drop in the temperature one night is going to hurt them. So even though your frost date might say like April 15th, maybe wait a couple of weeks after that to plant your seedlings outside. And make sure that you harden them off before you plant them outside so they don't have like culture shock. You also want to plant them outside in a space that gets 8 or more hours of sunlight. Cut flowers love the sun and they need full sun, so make sure you're planting them in an area that gets 8 or more hours of sunlight. And to ensure that you get flowers for a longer period of time, you might want to consider succession planting your seeds. So that is planting seeds for a certain flower. Say it's a sunflower, planting them every 3 or 4 weeks. So starting seeds every 3 or 4 weeks and then transplanting them outside accordingly. That way the blooms last longer and you have flowers to enjoy for a much longer period of time. My third tip when it comes to growing beautiful backyard cutting gardens is to make sure that you are setting your flowers and your seedlings up for optimal growing. And this includes making sure that you pinch the varieties that need to be pinched. And pinching is just taking off the top couple of inches above the second set of true leaves, and you just pinch it off and compost it. And this is going to make sure that your flowers branch, and it's going to give you more flowers. It does delay the bloom time, but you are going to get more flowers and you're also going to get longer stems in many instances. Now, not all flowers benefit from pinching, so make sure that you read the seed packet and do a little research on Google to see which ones like to be pinched and which ones don't. I can tell you right now that single stem sunflowers do not like to be pinched and peonies do not like to be pinched. But zinnias and cosmos absolutely love to be pinched, so they're good to go for that. The next thing is you want to make sure that your flowers in your cutting garden is getting enough water. You can do this by lugging water and watering them every day or every couple of days with a hose and a watering can, or you can do what we do and we set up irrigation systems with soaker hoses that are on a timer, and we water our gardens every 2 to 3 days based off of kind of what the temperature is and what the weather is doing. And this just ensures that all of our flowers are getting a good amount of water, and it's actually, by using the soaker hoses and the irrigation system, we're watering the roots, which is what you want, because you don't want water to sit on the leaves because it can cause mildew and lots of nasty bacteria. So by using a soaker hose or irrigation system, you're watering the soil and the roots, which is overall better for your flowers. Another thing that you're going to want to do when it comes to growing cut flowers is these flowers are going to get really tall. So you want to make sure that you have some type of netting or support for them. We put in T-posts and then use a mesh netting that we install probably really early on when our seedlings are small. And we put this down and then the seedlings grow up through it. It gives them that extra support that they'll need in the late summer months when the storms start coming in and the heavy rains, and this will just keep everything up. I was the lazy gardener this year and I did not do this in one of my beds, and it was a disaster. All of the flowers, I wouldn't say all of them, but the majority of them got toppled over, and then the stems bent, and they really just weren't usable. So learn from my mistake and make sure that you put netting down to help support your flowers. I know what you might be thinking when it comes to weeding your cut flower gardens, and you're probably like, oh my gosh, I don't like weeding my regular garden. Why am I going to like weeding more? But with cut flowers and even with some veggies, you can use landscaping mesh with holes burned into them, and it cuts down on your weeding time. So we use landscaping mesh in all of our beds, and we have burned holes in them in a pattern about every 9 inches. And then we plant our seedlings right into those holes. Now we have to weed a little bit in the beginning before the plant takes over the hole and covers the hole. But after that, we weed maybe once, maybe twice, and then we don't have to weed again because the flower grows tall enough and it shades out the area of the soil that's exposed, so then we don't have any weeds anymore. So landscaping mesh, where it is an investment up front, definitely worth it in the long run, especially with our crazy busy lives and 4 kids. Now, my last tip when it comes to the growing section of this video and growing cut flowers is to make sure you are fertilizing your flowers. We love using Plant Tone, and they have a variety of fertilizers. They even have one specifically for flowers that we highly recommend. But we fertilize our flowers according to the directions on the back of the fertilizer bag. You know, too much fertilizer is actually not good for your flowers. So make sure that you're following the directions on the back of the fertilizer. We fertilize according to the directions, and we have beautiful blooms all season long, and we cannot speak highly enough of Epsoma's Plant Tone. We absolutely love it. So tip number 4 is probably one of my favorite, and it's probably the part you are looking forward to the most, and that is harvesting and arranging all of your beautiful cut flowers that you have spent so much time on so far. We like to harvest all of our cut flowers in the early morning when it is cooler. They bounce back and they just last longer in the vase. So we take a bucket of water out, and we take our friskers, pruning shears out, and we cut the flowers with stems anywhere between 18 and 24 inches long, and then plop them in the bucket. Before we plop them in the bucket, I make sure that I remove all of the leaves. Leaves in water can cause bacteria, which is a no-no for vase life. So I remove the leaves in the field or in the garden while I'm there, just to make the step easier. So I cut low and deep, remove all the leaves, plop them in the bucket, and then bring them inside. I let them sit inside and let them condition, as it's called, for a couple of hours before I will start arranging them into vases, either for our table or to give away. The thing with a cutting garden is you want to harvest 2 or 3 times a week to encourage more blooms. So with a cutting garden, the more you harvest, the more blooms you get. The more blooms you get, the more beneficial insects will come, and the more beneficial insects, the less pests you'll have in your garden. If you are interested in how cut flowers can help with your vegetable garden, I highly suggest you check out my free workshop, Carrots in the Flower Patch, where I go through the 3 benefits of having cut flowers in your veggie patch. I'm gonna link that below for you guys. It's an amazing workshop, and you learn so much, I promise. When it comes to harvesting, you wanna make sure that you are paying attention to what you're harvesting and when. Like I said, when to harvest is always the early morning. If you can't harvest in early morning, then harvest in late afternoon when the temperatures are cooler. But each flower has a specific time when they want to be harvested, especially for a longer vase life. Now, this varies from variety and from flower to flower, so your best bet is to do another quick Google search and to figure out when to harvest specific flowers, especially the ones that you have planted in your garden. And to make sure that you have the longest vase life possible, make sure that your pruning shears and your bucket of water are clean. The biggest thing with vase life is making sure that your tools are clean. Any bacteria gets on the flowers and your flowers are gonna die. So when it comes to harvesting, make sure everything is clean. And my last tip for you, tip number 5 for growing beautiful cut flowers in your backyard, is to just keep growing. You are going to learn so much your first year, and every year after that you're going to learn more and more. And I just encourage you to grow more, try more things, experiment with more things. The more you grow, the more you'll find what you like and the things that grow well in your garden. So my tip number 5 is just keep growing and just keep experimenting. If you want to know more about how to start a backyard cutting garden, then I highly suggest you check out my course, The Cutting Garden. I have linked it below for you guys. I go through everything that we talked about today in more detail, along with so many other topics about when it comes to growing a backyard cutting garden. I have linked it below for you. Like I said, it is amazing. It will have you growing beautiful cut flowers this year, which will in turn make your vegetable garden even better. So if you want to grow cut flowers in your backyard, make sure you check it out. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today at the farmhouse. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.